We'll do it live.
We'll do it live. We're doing it live.
You're listening to Dots, Lines, and Destinations, a travel podcast with hosts Stephen Seagraves, Fosma Moon, and Seth Miller.
Welcome to Dots, Lines, and Destinations, episode 334. I'm here with Seth Miller and special guest Jason Rabinowitz.
Hello.
And where is here?
We are in, where are we, Williamsburg?
We are in Williamsburg, Domino Park.
I mean, I feel like I'm in Portland.
Yeah,
The waterfront isn't this nice in Portland, is it?
On certain days.
more of a river. Well, we're on a river here too, I guess.
Yeah.
So it's nice.
I feel like I flew across the country to come to another Portland.
Yeah, but the important thing is we're doing a podcast with actual eye contact.
Eye
We're in
contact,
person.
and I can see your mouth and your face.
This is new for me for a long time.
Yeah.
And try not to get cited for open container.
Yes.
Just put the mask around the can, and they won't see what it is.
Quarantining. Yeah.
Quarantining the can.
So yeah, Seth is here for work, and I actually had a separate ticket booked and made it work so we could all be here together.
And I live here.
And yeah, Jason lives here.
Still.
How
was travel? This is your first flight, right?
Yeah, like my first official long-haul flight, I guess. I flew through Denver.
We're calling Transcon long haul now?
Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
that's where we're at.
Okay.
That's where we're
And
at.
honestly, it was really just a mid-con because he connected in Denver.
Yeah, and Denver was a shit show.
A little busy?
A little busy. Busier than I expected. Got into LaGuardia late. Beautiful terminal you have here, Jason.
Yeah, and you busted curfew. You got in after midnight.
Got in
and
after
made it.
midnight. That airport, gorgeous.
Yeah, so I had also my first during, post-COVID, I guess you would call it not post-COVID, because we're definitely not on the other
COVID
side,
era?
but COVID-era flight in and out of the new LaGuardia, and that place is like, what the hell happened? Where did this place come from?
Yeah, I mean,
I get to see it tomorrow.
Yeah, because you're flying out.
So I'm flying out, finally going home. But, I mean, I've seen the pictures, I've seen some of the videos. Is it really that nice?
The pictures don't do it justice, because when you get there, I'm still in the mindset of I'm going to LaGuardia.
Yeah.
And the building you walk into is not LaGuardia at all.
Except it is.
It is, but it doesn't feel like it.
Your brain, when you think of LaGuardia, your brain immediately goes to
Edgy
water
areas.
dripping from the ceiling.
My memory goes to when it was the U.S. Air Terminal, Terminal D, was being reconstructed in like the late 90s. That's what I remember. But so that was construction 30 years ago.
Yeah.
And I lived here for 18 years, and it was always, my memories were like vaguely miserable in construction. So it's going to be weird for it to not be that anymore.
We still have a number of years before we're to the point where LaGuardia is done.
Yeah. It's still going to be construction, right? I mean, like.
Yeah, C and D, the Delta terminals are still very much under construction.
I think what took me off guard was just the size of the terminal. I mean, it is, when you go inside, the ceilings are really, really high. Everything's vertical, right? So you got to go up and over to the actual, gate from the main concourse. Was different than LaGuardia ever was. It was always you walk down.
Yeah,
and look
down into the depths of LaGuardia for your flight.
It's a nice. I flew out of LaGuardia before COVID, back when they were still working on it. You kind of had to go through the maze of tunnels, and now that they fixed it so that you kind of go up some escalators to go through security.
Yeah,
up and over the bridge.
And so this is the new bridge that's going to go over what eventually will be taxiways, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So the new head house opened right in the middle of COVID. I think June of 2020. So right in the thick of there being no flights in New York. So I never actually got to go see it even until just a couple weeks ago. And I actually flew out of LaGuardia. You flew in. So you didn't even really get to experience the check-in and ticketing hall, which is like otherworldly for LaGuardia.
Yeah, you see it kind of coming down the escalator when you go into baggage.
Right.
And it's definitely like, oh, nice marble. It's the most open a check-in counter has ever been.
Yeah.
It looks like something out of Europe or Asia.
Yeah.
Really.
So now they have everyone leaving out of the central terminal, going through that building. Then you go into like the main post-security rotunda with the water feature that isn't just like garden hoses and buckets collecting water, but it's actually supposed to be there. And then depending who you're flying, you either end up in the new gate, one of the two new piers, or the dreaded D gates, where American still has half its flights.
And one of the things I noticed was that there's like a lot of restaurants or concession before you even go over the bridge.
Yeah, so that's the departure
inside
lounge.
security still?
Yeah, that's inside security. So
yeah,
just
okay.
after security, you go through a duty-free, not duty-free maze because you're flying domestically.
Hey, Air Canada's coming back eventually.
Sure, one day. And then they kind of toss you into the main, I guess you could call it food court, where they have like Junior's, cheesecake, and some other local establishments. And then you go up an escalator, over a bridge, down an escalator, around a couple circles, and then you end up in your pier.
I do wonder what it's going to be like when it's full traffic, lots of people up and down the escalators. In typical New York fashion, yesterday people were walking up and down the escalators in a very speedy fashion, which are not wide escalators. So when it's crowded, it's going to be you're going to stand there.
Yeah,
and it's probably also not wide enough to touch your bags.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see how that works.
I think they've done as good a job as they could possibly do given the space constraints they have there. I mean, they literally built an airport on top of a functioning airport in a tiny.
No, I've heard the governor say it's a brand new airport.
All right, my mistake. It's a new airport. Yeah.
Brand new, the only one.
Yep.
In
Since
the
Denver.
country ever.
Yep.
Tore down Rikers. Yeah, I really liked it. Even after bust the curfew, I thought it was really nice. I think another thing that strikes you too is like just the roadways coming up to it.
Yeah.
Getting out of the airport's actually easy. It's not like it used to be where you had like 4 stop signs. The drivers.
There's a traffic light now.
Yeah, it's
Weird merges are mostly gone.
Yeah, all the weird merges.
I mean, there's still no train to LaGuardia. That's a whole other topic for another podcast day. But the one thing I do miss is that there's no more easy in and out of LaGuardia. The old LaGuardia, you could pull into gate D1 and you could be on the bus in under a minute. Now it's 5, 7, 10 minutes minimum to get out of there because there's so many elevation changes. And
will that go away when they finish the head house?
No, that's the way it is now. I mean,
I know you got to go up. You'll have to go the up and down, but it will be just the one up and down as opposed to multiple.
I think it will just be the one up and down because right now, to get to the old B gates, you still have to go through the last remaining chunk of the old Central Terminal building, which is a little weird. But it'll be a little more streamlined, but it still won't be the same amazing LaGuardia feature where you could be from plane to bus in a minute.
I recall when we talked about this a while back, Bob was mad that they were redoing it because he found it too easy to get in now, despite it being a shithole. He liked it being easier rather than nice.
Yep.
There's something to be said for that.
I could vote for both, but we should see. How's the rest of the trip?
It's good. I think. I mean, it felt very
considered.
It felt very united. I mean, it was delayed out of Denver. It felt like I was back, back home. But then I think what struck me was how crowded Denver was. I think people are saying travel's dead, or it's people aren't traveling. Both my flights were full.
Yeah.
Airport was full. Tried to get ripped off by a cabbie after landing in LaGuardia.
Wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah, I mean, he tried to make me, tell me, it's $50 into Manhattan from LaGuardia. I told him,
no.
F off.
I will pay whatever the meter says.
And he said, I can't turn the meter on. I said, well, then I'll get out. And he said, well, how about 35? I said, that's close enough.
Okay, so you negotiated your better pay.
I was tired. It was midnight.
Yeah, and that's what he's depending.
I'm still trying to figure out if travel is really back and flights are really full, or if the schedule is just still so pared back that everything appears to be full.
I think it's both.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, the past week we've seen like 60 to 70%. We've actually had a couple days over 70% of 2019 era travel, which is what I'm considering pre-pandemic these days. But the schedules are still decimated right now in a lot of markets. Like for me to fly home New York to Boston tomorrow is less than half the flights that used to exist, even on a Sunday.
Right.
And there's markets, I've talked about this before, Boston to Newark used to be 16 flights a day and is now like 18 a week. So there's still a lot of market, and so that's why flights are more full, which is good for the airlines because it'll help also drive the yields back up a little bit. But that's the real question, though, I think right now is how much of this return to service is empty, airlines seeing empty planes and just cutting fares to fill them versus people now paying, we'll say real money to fly. Right, this summer we saw a quick bump in fares as the not quarantine's lifted, but as some of the rules relaxed, some of the CDC things changed, and I'm sure there'll be another spike with the recent no masks if you're fully vaccinated rule that came out, or guidance that came out this past week. So
can we talk about that for?
Sure. It's your podcast.
Yeah, I mean, so they tell me.
Just feed that ego.
So CDC gives out this guidance that says masks public for vaccinated people unnecessary.
Right.
But they've made it very clear that masks are necessary for airplanes and trains and buses.
I wouldn't say they made that clear. They didn't even mention that. On their sheets.
To be fair. And
modes of there were follow-up pieces, like follow-up guidance that said, but transportation is still covered.
Yeah.
Or you need to still be covered as a
I'm okay with the CDC guidance, to be very clear. However, I find it odd that we're saying it's okay in public not to wear a mask if you're vaccinated, but if you're on an airplane, you have to wear a mask.
Yeah,
because we've been preached. It was banged into our heads when get go of COVID that planes are safe.
Not only have they been saying planes are safe, I think we talked about this a little on Twitter the other day, but they've been saying planes are the physically safest place a human being could possibly be, and no one will ever get sick on a plane. You'll get struck by lightning 8 times before you get sick on a plane.
Yep.
And yet that's the one place you still have to wear a mask.
Yeah.
It's very confusing.
I think it's frustrating for people because they think, well, I don't have to wear it out in public, why do I have to wear it here?
Yeah.
Thoughts?
I understand the challenge there. I think that Sarah Nelson, is her name, right? AFA?
Yeah.
Flight attendants union head made a good point, which is transmission still happens. Transmission happens via planes, but it's really healthy or sick people traveling and then getting out and being stupid off at the other end, right?
Yeah.
It's not happening on the plane so much as is happening via plane. And so that's a little challenging, but I'm not opposed to keeping the mask in place on planes. For one thing, the rule is if you're fully vaccinated, and there's no one actually checking that.
Right.
And if we're on an honor system, the people that don't want to get vaccinated are also the people that aren't going to pay attention to the honor system anyway and aren't going to wear their masks. So I've got a bunch of trips coming up this summer. Like, I'm starting to fly again. And while I find wearing the mask annoying, especially now that I'm, fully vaccinated plus 2 weeks, whatever, I'm pretty happy knowing that it's still there. And on the planes, I'm not willing to have that fight yet.
Yeah.
And
it's probably a good thing, because the messaging about airplane safety never really made much sense, because on an airplane you're sitting inches away from someone for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 hours. They're comparing that to the air is cleaner than a grocery store. Well, I'm not in a grocery store for 9 hours, and I'm not sitting next to anyone 3 inches away from my face for that duration of time. So I get that they need to keep the mask rule. The messaging about what is going on, which is, to me, was very poor.
I think in general, though, the messaging has been poor.
Yeah.
I think that's the key takeaway. Sorry, we're watching the ferries go by. It's great.
Yeah, and it's the popo.
It's the most I've ever seen on a New York City.
It's going over like 4 miles an hour. It must be.
And it's got people on it.
Yeah.
It's the most people I've ever seen on one.
Except the summer tourist rides out to the beach.
Yeah. What is NYPD doing? Are they looking for us?
NYPD boat came in too. This is lovely water from me. Did they see us drinking beer in the park? Is that what this is?
Yeah, it's a shakedown.
Yeah, but we're on land, they're on water. They don't have jurisdiction on us.
I don't think that's how it works.
Yeah, no.
Today, in Suspicious Legal Advice by Jason Rabinowitz.
They're maritime law.
Yeah. Oh boy. Just gonna think, is anything else special? Anything else to take from your travels?
No. Did I mention anything that I'm forgetting?
I don't know. I think the crowding is the interesting part to me, I think, and really figuring out how that's going to play out.
Yeah, I mean, I think the summer, we're getting into summer months. You said you're traveling a little bit. Jason, you're traveling a little bit.
Yep.
I'm probably going to travel a little bit. I think more and more people are feeling, especially those who've been vaccinated, are feeling more comfortable traveling. So I wonder what is it going to look like in 2 months, middle of June, July, when people are like, let's go to the beach, let's go to New York, let's go to LA.
The amount of pent-up demand for travel right now really is probably higher than it's ever been in the past. It's just, I don't really feel like I have anywhere to go right now. Like, I want to travel internationally, but that's still almost completely off the table right now.
Unless you're going to Greece.
Or Italy, maybe, if you only fly Delta's COVID-tested flight, maybe.
Yeah, what is this about?
Nobody really knows. So Delta's had these COVID-tested flights where you can bust their mandatory quarantine if you do multi-stage testing before departure. But now that was only for essential travel, if you had business, if you had essential business there, or student or family members. But now Delta said it's open to tourism, but the Italian government hasn't said anything to that degree.
Really?
No. So book it and find out the hard way.
Yeah, book it and try. Yeah,
that's interesting. I would have assumed that Delta wouldn't have made that announcement without guidance from the Italian government.
They may have guidance, but that guidance isn't public
yet. Wow. I mean, we also only found out that Portugal is officially going to open up to Brits I want to say Friday morning, after people had started booking on speculative flights, assuming that was going to happen.
Yep.
And then the minute it happened, all the prices tripled. So everybody was
Germany
super happy.
Announced very quietly too that they're fully open to vaccinated travelers as well. Just a couple days ago. Yeah.
Good
only in German. The English site does not have that information.
And what's interesting is that site also says that it's still closed to Americans.
Yeah.
even if fully vaccinated?
Yeah.
Fully vaccinated travelers. But I also have to assume a little bit of that is reciprocity, right? Until the U.S. really opens up.
I think that is what it is.
It's got to happen soon, right?
It will. And I think the interesting part is going to be the vaccinated versus not, or test. We have vaccinated versus testing. That's a really weird dichotomy right now of if I'm fully vaccinated, but I want to be on one of these Delta flights, I still have to test twice before departure, plus once on arrival. And I'm going to St. Martin, I have to test before and after. There's all this testing involved, and no one's updated the rules to say vaccinated doesn't have to test.
Yeah.
Or I should say no one. Most haven't.
Yeah.
And no one's even talking yet about mandatory vaccination for entry.
Yeah.
The Australians have been talking about it.
Yeah, but maybe late 2022. They're still very, very closed off.
Right, because they can't get to the point where they can trust that people will have vaccinations.
Or should they?
So with that, though, right, we're talking about European travel now. Do the schedules have to, they have to adjust, right, to meet this?
I mean, in the very short term, yes, but anything more than 3 months out, the schedule is pretty much unchanged for 2019. If you look 3 months in the future, you still see British Airways operating 90 gazillion flights between JFK and Heathrow a day. None of that's real. It's all hypothetical, but they could.
They're going to leave it there.
Yeah.
The safety net.
Yeah.
keep those slots.
Yeah, exactly. Use them. I guess
Not this
it's
summer.
not use them or lose them this summer, but it will get back there at some point.
Yeah, when are we going to hear that negotiations for October?
Yeah.
Right? You know the airlines are going to ask for waivers again for winter coming up.
Yeah.
That season starts in October, so I figure they start negotiating that in June.
Yeah.
So that'll be fun. Look forward to that conversation coming soon.
What about United has announced the testing kits that they can
Take your own antigen test take your own antigen kit with you.
you order it, take it with you. It's valid for entry back in the United States. So this is really focused on tourists going somewhere and then coming back to the. So for you, you're going to St. Martin,
right?
Needing a test coming back.
My hotel offers their PCR test, but they offer them in the lobby 4 days a week.
Yeah.
Right.
And it just has to be within 72 hours of return, so I'll be okay. There's a couple interesting things about this. One is it's antigen testing,
which is accepted by the U.S., but not
almost
many
no one
countries.
else.
Yeah.
For entry. So that's one part that I find interesting. The another part is that they're saying you have to bring 2.
Yes, one might be inconclusive, so you better have a backup.
Which, dollars to spend is fine.
But the tests aren't that expensive. It's $150 for a 6-pack, which I expected much higher.
Than $25 a pop.
Yeah. And a lot of places here in the U.S. are charging a lot more than $25 a pop for a regular test.
Yeah.
Even though they shouldn't legally be charging anything. But
yeah. Now, so 25 is in the ballpark of, like, reasonable for a tourist.
Convenience fee.
Huh?
It's a convenience fee.
Except it's really 50. But, this is an interesting one. I think that's ballpark reasonable. I'm going to pay 70, I think, in St. Martin for mine, so fine.
Mm-hmm.
But also, you get Willie Walsh from IATA now saying any fee for testing is too high. They should be like less than $5, and everybody should be able to use antigen for all tests everywhere. Lateral flow, they call them.
But he doesn't get to dictate what countries will accept.
Well, no, because he's neither a health professional nor a government authority. He's just a lobbyist for airlines.
Yeah. I mean, I see his point coming back into the United States. Get everyone in the U.S. in agreement that this antigen test is acceptable. Okay,
and we do. I mean, the U.S. government has decided that.
Yeah.
But
and so, like, for me coming back from Europe, I've talked about going to Croatia because Croatia is going to be open. So with an antigen test, this is an easy way for me to come back to the United States.
Sure. If you don't think you'll be able to find testing locally in Croatia, yes.
For cheaper. Yeah.
Or just easily. I mean, I don't know, the one part about this that's interesting to me is, like, the U.S., for those tests to be valid, it has to be, like, supervised.
Yeah.
And so apparently it's, like, all online and whatever you do it.
Yeah, it's a virtual visit.
But it's a virtual visit, and it's not virtual in the sense of, like, it's a bot, right? It's virtual in the sense of you just do it, like, via...
You actually have to wait for, like, a nurse on the thing, and then the 15-minute waiting period, or 5 or 15-minute waiting period, and then someone else comes back to verify the results.
Virtual means lots of things.
How does it actually work with the results? Is it just turn a
It's almost
color?
like a pregnancy test. It changes color, and I think one line means you're sick, 2 lines mean it's negative. So it's kind of very, very similar to that.
Yeah.
But it's not like digital, like it's not doing the test and uploading it. Or anything. It's all, you hold the thing up to the webcam. And
then they
see
type in
the
that you're
Yeah.
good, and you get a barcode that you can then use wherever you're going. And
Which, I get it. That sounds reasonable enough. It also, like, seems a little sketchy. But
it also sounds kind of like a pain in the ass, too.
could I just go get
It's a pain in the nose.
Could you just go get a pregnancy test and show them the 2 bars?
You can try it and see what happens.
Will they notice the difference?
Maybe. Well, how high resolution is your webcam?
It's going to be whatever my phone is, and it's Android, so probably not great. All right, let's talk about some other things. Vistar wants to fly to Tokyo
Good luck.
once a week.
Why?
I have no idea.
Why do anything once a week?
I have no idea.
Are they wanting to fly a 787?
Yep.
Okay.
They've got them, and they got to do something with them, right? They can't really go to London. They can't really go... They sort of had Germany. They've been talking about the U.S. They applied for service to the U.S. They want to do that come September, but apparently they want to do Tokyo, and they're planning on starting Tokyo in like 3 weeks.
But how? Japan's like one of the most closed-off countries in the world.
Japan and India isn't that open either.
No.
I cannot for the life of me figure it out, but that's one of the fun route announcements that came out last week.
I mean, I have tickets booked to Tokyo in March 2022, and I'm not confident it'll be open by then.
Did you get on the Philly deal?
Originally, yeah, and then American matched it at a Newark. So, yeah,
I knew it. I'll see you in Tokyo.
Yeah, great. This is how we live.
I may have to book an award trip now and come hang out with you guys. Woe is me.
If
Oh,
Japan
no.
is
If Japan is
open,
open,
yeah.
we will go find Yakitori and all will be good.
Yes.
Speaking
Speaking of which, we're drinking. I just want to mention real quick, we're on the waterfront near Other Half Brewing, and we're drinking the Boxcar Lager. It's pretty good. It's
Yeah.
nice. 4.5%. It's good for a nice warm day.
Good, nice outdoor by the waterfront.
Yeah.
Which we're totally not drinking out in the waterfront.
No.
In the park.
If anyone's listening.
If anyone in law enforcement is listening, you didn't see it happen. Nope. I'm denying all of this now. Although we have photos of it also, so maybe that's not a great plan. Delta's having some trouble keeping the Sky Clubs clean in Atlanta.
So they've asked for volunteers.
They've asked for volunteers to help clean the lounges. And it's volunteer salaried employees. So the trick there, or the key there, is they're asking for salaried employees, not hourly employees, because if it's hourly, they got to pay them.
Right. I'm okay with this.
Really?
I mean, how is it any different than JetBlue saying if you're deadheading on one of our flights, you're cleaning after yourself and the rest of the plane before you get off the plane?
Because that's been part of the job description, and it was part of like what you got. I mean, it is voluntary.
Right.
It just, I don't know, it rubs me as like, pay the people for doing work. I don't know.
Do you have to be like on a shift to be?
No, it's separate from your actual work shift.
No, screw that.
Right, this is come in, extra time, whatever, and like come hang out with us and help clean bus tables in the Sky Club.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird, but I get it. Like,
I do get it, I just think it's shitty.
they have an external company that does this stuff, but they can't get employees to do it, which is not directly Delta's fault, I guess. But
and yet still.
Yeah,
I mean, to be fair, like, yes, the company, Sodexo, that's supposed to do it is like 100-something people short right now. And they're offering a $2,000 sign-on bonus, but the pay is $10.90 an hour.
Yeah, this brings up a whole other topic that I was talking about on Twitter yesterday, the day before. I'm surprised that airports don't have a more difficult time than they do finding people to work.
Especially at those rates.
Jobs at what is basically minimum wage, but with all the additional hassles of working at an airport, getting to an airport, getting badged at an airport, going through TSA every day. That's not insignificant to be every day of your life when you're working at McDonald's at SeaTac Airport. Like, that's
or bussing tables for a bunch of lounge members who are not always the nicest travelers.
We try to be nice.
Some do. Not everyone. All right. That was the end of part 1 of this episode. We've got a table at the bar now, so we're going to go drink more beer legally. We'll be back shortly with part 2. Plane crash, Centennial Airport.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Colorado, just outside Denver. This was crazy. No one injured. 2 planes collided. Both landed. One landed, one
It landed. It also landed.
Also, under the definition of came through the ground, not in a fireball, it landed.
A Metroliner and a Cirrus SR-22.
Yeah. So the Metroliner is like old, built like a tank.
Yep.
Right. The pilot reported an engine out, didn't notice the fact that like the rear half of the fuselage had been ripped open.
Yeah.
And declined support from the tower when asked if he wanted.
Taxied into the cargo ramp.
Taxied over to the cargo ramp, and they're like, "Do you
we'll
want
be
us to
good."
send the fire department over?" And he's like, "Nah, I'm good." So clearly he didn't know. But the parachute part is really neat for me.
So the caps of the Cirrus, the parachute system. The pilot there pulled it, was successful, and the plane landed, and he was, I think, mildly injured.
Yeah, I actually don't know, haven't seen any report of what the damage was to the Cirrus that led to him pulling the cap system. Like, obviously something must have happened, because you don't pull that unless you intend to write off the aircraft and never have it fly again.
Yep.
But, yeah, that thing is miraculously, amazingly engineered.
And then more beer showed up, and life got better.
Cheers.
Drink it down before the rain comes, boys.
So, so the cap system, you sound like you know a lot about it. I mean,
yeah, the caps is just it's a parachute system that's built into the Cirruses. It's basically a handle that the pilot can pull within a certain...
Like, instead of an ejector handle on a fighter jet, basically?
Yeah, it's like kind of up above you. You pull it, and it releases the parachute out.
I don't think it just releases it. It rockets out a parachute. Yeah.
It is, in fact, an ejector handle, but it's an ejector for the parachute.
Yeah. And there are criteria for when it can be deployed, right?
Like, so below 100 knots or something, 115 knots, something like that?
It's got to be going a certain speed and at a certain altitude. So this was on final at Centennial. Honestly, like listening to the audio and looking at kind of the radar tracks, it looks to me like the Cirrus he screwed up.
He missed. He missed his turn and lined up the wrong runway, right?
He blew his approach, right? Like, and there's 2 runways at Centennial, 17 left and 17 right, and I think he was cleared for right.
And he overshot it.
He overshot it and blew into the 17 left approach with the Metroliner was on.
And just maybe 2 to 5 seconds before the collision, ATC told him, do not overshoot the turn for final.
Yeah, so clearly someone was watching and noticed he was missing. But
I mean, the cap system works, which is, it has failed before.
So the other thing about the cap system that I find amazing is like its history and why it exists. And it's because, right, like one of the founders of Cirrus had a crash and thought like maybe we should have parachutes on airplanes insteid and like designed it into their models.
Yeah. And
that's not a technical explanation, but
he saw an opportunity, or I wouldn't even say an opportunity, he saw a need to give pilots a level of safety that if their plane would become unflyable, they can survive the situation. There's arguments out there that it's made pilots lax or
don't Boeing pilots say the same thing about Airbus fly-by-wire?
Yeah. I don't know that I completely buy that. The data seems to back up that Cirrus pilots do take a little more risk than they probably should. based on the number of capitals and accidents, incidents, things like that. But at the end of the day, it worked for this guy.
Yeah.
And he survived.
Yeah, I'm still waiting to hear the first real-world use of one of the Autoland systems on one of these GA aircraft, the Garmin or the other system where they just push a button and the plane does basically all of the flying and gets you to the nearest airport and lands. That's kind of, I mean, it's not the same as CAPS, since CAPS is designed for, oh crap, my airplane is broken and I need to get down to the ground, but I'm very much looking forward to the first successful life-saving use of that system.
So you say it's not the same as CAPS, but there's also, if you talk to the Brits right now, there's a sort of this huge push in the United Kingdom to try to not fully automate things, but go towards like more eco-friendly and otherwise useful single-pilot operations. And they want to basically make the small commuter flights, the Stobart and the guys that fly to the Shetlands. I'm blanking on the name of that group now. But make all of those single-pilot operations, like on little 10 to 19 seaters. And big part of that was, can they make it happen as a single pilot? And if they do that, they need some sort of automation or like augmented pilot bit. And Inmarsat, who does the in-flight connectivity solutions, is part of that group now because their L-band, low bandwidth satellite connection is certified for flight deck communication. So it's sort of not the drag and drop, but sort of plug and play into this environment. And it already has all the, I guess it would be CAA certification UK off, how it actually integrates and whatnot is fine, but I was talking to the guys about it, and they were like, it's not going to have video, you're not going to have any of these things to like figure out how to make it work, and their comment was, all you need is a very thin, bandwidth connection, and there's an emergency button. Someone on the ground can press it, or someone in the air can press it, but if they press it, it's registered at both ends, and the plane takes over, and it's basically using these Autoland systems.
Wouldn't it be weird if you're flying and someone else pushes the button?
Yep, whoops, meant to hit Outlook there, accidentally hit the Autolander airplane button.
Yeah. Oh, Jim, you did it again.
I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how that goes.
I mean, it's a cool system. I think the idea of it's great, especially like with single pilot operation. I think it's going to enable a lot of stuff. The reason I like CAPS is because it is such a like save your life type system.
Yeah,
and when it works well. I was amazed at how well the Metroliner held up to the damage.
Thing's a tank.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at it, the fuselage is cut in half. It's got just the bottom half, like the bottom piece, holding it together.
But I mean, we've seen incidents like that before with a panel blown out.
True.
There's one in Hawaii. Like 40 years ago now, probably.
Yep.
Right, a 727 or something like.
I think it was a 7.3 Classic.
Or a 7.3 Classic, whatever. Like, so I mean, planes are crazy over-engineered. It is always amazing to see how well it works.
Yeah. I'm reading a tweet from Peter Lemmy, who knows a fair bit about flight controls, and he says, on the Fairchild Metro 2, the elevator and rudders are manually actuated with flight controls routed below the main deck. So
all the cabling was was in the floor of the main deck.
And only the entire top half of the airplane was obliterated, so
it was really luck.
Right, all the critical cabling was underneath the flooring, which was probably damaged, but still intact.
Yeah, so it's super interesting. I just everything around that incident was interesting to me.
Yeah,
especially also amazing. Like literally, the pilot didn't realize there was a problem until he got off. The plane was like, half my plane's missing. What happened there?
Yeah, when he called it in and said, I think we lost an engine.
You lost more than an engine, friend.
Yeah. And so I'll be interested to see what the NTSB report is on it, because, like you said, Jason, like what actually hit from the Cirrus.
Right.
You know, like did it...
12 to 18 months, we should know.
Yeah. Any day now.
Listen, they do good work, and I appreciate them doing it right in detail.
Well, we should get a preliminary report within the next couple weeks, so we'll get
4 to 6 weeks. We'll have
some idea.
Alrighty, I think that's going to be it for the main part of the episode. We got a little Hawaii conversation to come up in the bonus topics for our Patreon subscribers.
We going to Hawaii?
We're going to Hawaii.
Oh, congrats.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's talk about it. We'll see how far we actually get.
Yeah.
But we'll have that for our Patreon subscribers, which thank you to those of you who are already there. For those who want to, read the show notes or any of the pages. You can find us, I think we're just Dots, Lines, and Destinations on Patreon, but something like that.
You bought, as a supporter, you bought Jason his beer today.
Thank you.
And Stephen and mine, but mostly Jason. You can also follow us on Twitter at DotsLines or more.lines.com, and we will talk to you again next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.